So today we'll be talking about generative AI, real use case, and the HR space. And we will be talking about a tangible process and framework that led to the execution of the plan from proof concept to productization. We start more than a year ago, and this has been a journey. As you might see, like everything is moving really fast with generative AI. Before we go deeper into the presentation, a quick intro. So I'm currently the VP of Engineering at Betterworks, an enterprise performance management SaaS software. Before this, I was also a VP of Engineering at a company called GenAI. We have been building the first virtual CGM, continuous glucose monitor. It was fun to see this on Nikesh's presentation. So this is a way where we have digital twins you can give to the junk food you don't want to eat and see the outcomes based on trained models. And also I was CTO at a company called Thrive Global. We do well-being SaaS enterprise. I'm also involved in a lot of initiatives in AI. I'm not an AI expert myself, and this is something to recognize and acknowledge all the AI work that other people are doing in the data science, machine learning, and AI. I'm more on the side of consuming and using these and integrate them into real use cases. So Betterworks, in a nutshell, is an enterprise performance management software. It's very human-centric. It's all about what people do in an organization. So we help these enterprise customers build their awareness about the framework and the performance, and really give their employees and managers and leaders tools to improve performance and productivity. So we have everything from employee engagement, one-on-ones, goals, calibration, conversations, giving feedback, and also most recently skills, talent profile, and succession planning. So as you might see here, the platform is all about creating connections, creating an environment where people can know and work together and improve performance over time. And with the generative AI kind of growth over the last year or 2 years, it was very important to us to build a vision where generative AI is introduced to empower the human experiences, keep the people in the driver's seats, and be co-pilots to enhance the experience. So we've been looking at how can we create a more connected experiences? How can we enhance and build a delightful user experience that is usually most of the time very overwhelming? Think about the manager who has 50 people reporting to them in their org, not necessarily directly, but they need to do a performance review at the end of the year. Think about all the process that goes into that and all the work that is necessary. This used to take weeks and a lot of work and efforts to get there. But where we think we can bring value is like bringing generative AI to make this process way easier, faster, build templates, create an environment for everyone in these organizations to be able to move fast and execute and have very insightful data. So we were trying to build this as much as possible in the flow of work and keep it kind of in continuous way so we can achieve the goals of improving performance. But also, since we are aiming enterprise, we want to make sure everything we introduce is kind of suitable for the audience, is global, and has a lot of other kind of designed for global audience and has a lot of other utilities. So getting a lot of insights out of using generative AI to get insightful information about performance was one of our major goals. Now, when you think about generative AI, there's a lot of hype, there's a lot of data, a lot of organizations are just trying to build generative AI for the purpose of generative AI. But at Betterworks, we have been able to start with a framework and build a framework that is very iterative, that we can go through, learn from our experiences and our mistakes, and get better over time. This framework is based on 4 pillars. The first one is planning. Planning means we set aside resources and build a task force. This task force has been composed with people from different departments, not just engineering and product, but also legal and customer success and all of the kind of resources we had available. Because at the time, generative AI everyone was hyped and interested in using them, but no one had a clear understanding of how can we get this into the software. The other thing is we create a council for external customers. We brought customers in, we had conversations to really understand their needs. So we want to build a product that fits the customer needs, not just our interest in building generative AI. And then the other thing as part of planning is really to start small, focus on one case at a time and evolve as we go through the flywheel. Building was, for me as a VP of engineering, is the most interesting part because we had to understand what's going on with generative AI. What are all these models today in Hugging Face? I think there is more than a million model out there. And I had a slide like a few months ago where I said, oh, there is 600,000. Like in a matter of like maybe 2 months, there was another 400,000 models coming up. So understanding these models, the infrastructure behind them, how it works, and how can you get this into your organization system without breaking things. Third part of the wheel is to run, to really execute on your initial plans and your initial build ideas. So how would you deploy these? How can you consume them? We have many options. We go through the presentation and see most of these, and then really understand the performance of what you're getting out of these integrations. And then last but not least is obviously the optimize. This is what kind of completes the circle and goes back to the plan. So as you deploy and as you experiment, you learn lessons, and from your mistakes, but also your successes, you focus on improving the next time you will build an integration, or the same integrations or features you build with generative AI, how can you make them even better over time? So focus on scaling these things, ensuring security is always top of mind, and robustness. And we're talking about HR tech, so this is a very highly compliant space where there's a lot of limitations, and also global audience, so you have all these regions with their own AI acts and all compliance and rules, so you need to really make sure that as you optimize, you build towards that. So the first part was planning. Planning is you're trying to set yourself and your team and your organization for success. Planning for us was based on 4 key components. The first one is focused. With everything happening with generative AI, there is a million things going on. The pace of change is just crazy. If you just watch what's going on, you will be overwhelmed with the things. So our focus was, let's stay focused on small use cases, focus on customer needs, not with the interest of just building GenAI and have that in your website saying, oh, we are an AI-powered software, but really look at the value that you bring it to users, leveraging generative AI. And then you need to have clear goals. Like when you do this, what are your ROIs? What are you trying to get to? And then also understand your personas. Generative AI is great and is good, but can be used differently based on your personas. The one thing that is maybe a lesson learned here is like collaborating when it comes to the planning phase. Generative AI is not an engineering initiative. It's not a product initiative. It has been an organization initiative. So bringing everyone cross-functional teams, bringing people from different departments, understand their needs, their angles to generative AI use cases, and introducing a customer council where we talk to our current customers and maybe potential future customers about their expectation from generative AI, and also the limitation they might have in the system. So this kind of collaboration early on helped us really build something that will go really well with our audience and our market that we're in. And then focus on responsible AI. I think so far we talked enough about responsible AI. Make sure that this doesn't go outside of the boundaries of your expected experiences. Legal and ethics, this was important. So because we are heavily compliant space, HR tech, we manage a lot of data that is very personal. It was very important to manage our contracts and our legal aspect and our ethics of work and really document this in the best way possible so we can manage our communication with our customers. The third, and in my opinion, maybe one of the most important items of planning was the data. Generative AI is all powered by data, and as the saying, the known saying is like garbage in, garbage out. So if you don't have the right data, if you don't have the level of readiness needed to leverage generative AI, this might lead to unexpected experiences and broken experiences. So we really worked early on understanding, based on these simple use cases, obviously over time as they develop, where this is going, what quality we need to meet, and what is the governance of our data. And then lastly, expertise. As I was saying, this is moving really fast. Everything is happening at a very high pace. So we had to invest in training, learning, and continuous improvement. So we need to make sure, at least from my angle, from an engineering perspective and product, I had to make sure my team is keeping up with what's going on to the level that we need to implement and execute on. Very quickly, like in terms of HR tech, what we have been able to achieve is, using this framework of planning, we had this internal council, we had the external council, and we have been able to build HR examples, like what HR tech would benefit the most from the AI technology, or like the growth of AI using generative AI. And then we selected very few applications. We said, okay, this on the graph, this has very high impact and maybe a low entry point to be built as a feature. And we'll be looking looking at some of the diagrams and the frameworks. As an engineering leader, I have a lot of diagrams for you, so expect that in a minute. And then once we build like a good understanding of what is our vision and where we're going from here and how can we develop all of these use cases, we started training our own internal resources on the use cases, but also the risks and where this can lead to and how can we mitigate all of that ahead of time. Now, building, and again, this is where I enjoy this part because this is where I spent most of my time in the last kind of year at least, is looking at everything out there to understand what do we use and what technology we introduce and what value we get. So some aspects to these kind of technologies when it comes to LLMs, we started by looking at the licensing and cost, like what are the options we have, is there a free option, what paid options bring to the table, and what licenses, and how can we leverage them in an HR tech compliance space. Understanding the models, understanding the LLMs themselves and their capabilities and properties. You hear 7B, 70B, 400Bs, like what are these and how does it work? And how does that, again, impact our use cases? Should we start small and grow, or should we start with the biggest one so we can solve our problems? Training data, understanding what data is used to train, which is not necessarily data that is available publicly most of the time, but really trying to understand as much as possible, because again, as you are trying to sell to your customers, you will be asked that question. What kind of bias your data, your models have, what data was trained on. We get this on a daily basis. And then you need to assess the performance. You really need to understand the task performance and the overall technical performance of your models as you implement them. And again, for global audience, you need to understand if you can support the languages of your customers. You cannot go to your customers and say, sorry, we have these features for a certain set of languages, we cannot support the other ones. And then the main two questions that come to mind when you are picking models is proprietary versus open source. What are the cost implications? How can you build a system that is transparent and explainable in an HR tech space? What are the features that are available, and what are the options you have? And then the other question is off-the-shelf solution, like in GenAI as a service versus a self-hosted. Over time here, I use different colors to indicate what we use at Betterworks based on our needs. We went with open source self-hosted because we really wanted to have everything behind our firewall. But that doesn't mean that's how we started, and I'll go through that in a minute. After all of this, after we finish the phase of planning and the phase of understanding what and how we will be building this, it was about to implement. And these are just 3 examples of the set of features we implemented using generative AI, going from simple to more advanced. Feedback Writing Assist was one of these, where usually for people to give feedback, it was like a text box where you just type your text, you hit send. That's the feedback you give to someone at work. And we find there's a lot of issues with clarity, bias, unconscious bias, and not actionable, and mistakes that might happen. And generative AI was very helpful here because it could give you an improved version of that. It can remove the bias, but not just that. It will also tell you. And explainability and transparency is a big part of what we do. So at the bottom, if you can see there is why we changed this language, why we're suggesting this. So you learn about any unconscious bias you might have been using, or any direct language, or anything you can improve over time. So you're not only giving a better version of your feedback, but you're also, as a leader, or as a manager, or as an IC, you're learning better ways to communicate in general. Feedback Summary Assist, the second example here, is a little bit more advanced. If you look at the first one, it was just take text, send it to an LLM, rephrase it, return it. The second one here is summarization of the feedback. So if you're a manager and you have 100 people in your org and you want to look at someone's performance based on feedback, you have to go and browse, for a long time. And what we did here is we can summarize, we can look at all of this data at once and give you insights that are very helpful. So here the use case is different from just hitting the LLM with a prompt, with a text. Now we're using techniques to go and find data and summarize it and then show it to the user. And then there's even another level to this where we can pick a specific topic. Someone has an area of improve about communication. You can focus on that communication and you can really see the grounding feedback that is coming to that user about communication. Third example is a goal assist. So goal assist is, again, another layer of complexity or how advanced our use case of GenAI. So this one here is looking at all your previous goals in the company, your manager goals, your team and department goals, and your overall organization, the history, everything that might impact what are the best goals for you for the upcoming quarter or year, and gives you a way to start this process early on with templates and with drafts that you need to review, approve, and think about, and really pick the ones that work for you and edit them. Again, this is more advanced because now we're looking at across verticals. We're looking not just at goals, but also at feedback, conversations, one-on-ones you had, bringing all that to the surface. We're not just looking at one user's data too, we're looking at across different people. So that's a more advanced feature, but again, it required us, we didn't start with that. It took us time to build up our understanding. Again, one graph here, it's a little bit more technical, but you can imagine everything to the left side as, what we had as a system, our API, our clients, and our services running, our data and data warehouse, database and data warehouse. Whatever is green is what we had to do to add a specific generative AI service. We needed guardrails to make sure we moderate the traffic and the language to remove the bias, to remove harm and violence and all of these kind of things that are in HR kind of tech are just simply unacceptable. And it's very important for us to comply with that. And then we created systems where we have RAG, retrieval augmented generation, where you can pull the data from your databases, put them into kind of in a vector DB or others, so you can do semantic search, find this information exposed to the user. And then there was a kind of a shift between deciding of using an off-the-shelf LLM. That's what we started. We used GPT early on as like a proof of concept to validate our ideas, and also the data that we used at the beginning were not that sensitive, so we were fine with that. And we let our customers opt in for the use case. But then we ended up self-deploying an open source LLM, have it behind our firewalls, and manage that, fine-tune it if needed. And we added other models too for embeddings, for safeguards, evaluators. We kept like going and growing our real estate based on these technologies. Now, to get there, we really used, from a technical perspective, a framework called the AI Maturity Framework that I personally really kind of leverage a lot. And we start from the bottom, level 0, level 1. This is where we start with like off-the-shelf solution, simple prompt. You just implement the user context, the content, and then you do some data pre-processing at the beginning. Very easy. You can get this done. That's a proof of concept anyone can do in like a matter of days. And as you go up, you get more into sophistication, more security, more privacy. So we started like doing more and more these retrievals using SQL. Like when we got into RAG, when it comes to data and retrieval. In terms of prompt engineering, we kind of kept training and understanding how prompts work and how prompts work across different models. But we kept improving our prompts and adding few shots to just train in context learning, to train our model that, hey, can you summarize this feedback? And look at these examples. These are use cases that happened before where summary didn't work or did really well, and learn from that. That was very efficient compared to going straight into fine-tuning, investing in that, and building something that doesn't work or is time consuming. And then in terms of like learning as an engineering leader, we learned about how to manage infrastructure. It was easy to start with ChatGPT through an API. Here you go, the traffic goes outside of your network and comes back with the responses. But once you want to manage everything in-house, we had to build our LLM ops and have a whole dedicated team to manage all of that and make it easier for us to consume. So that was also different level. We started with basic and we had advanced. We were looking into other future options. But looking at the big picture here, the learning from this framework is you don't have to start at level 6. You don't need to go and chase agents and like chain of thoughts and all of the complicated things from day one. You really need to understand your basic needs, your initial early needs, and learn as you develop. The last part of the flywheel was optimize. How would you optimize? But to get there, you need to really understand your data. This slide here, I'm going to go through, like I'm going to skip, honestly, because we have a panel later today at 3:10 p.m. We'll be talking about this. We'll be showing this, and we'll go deeper into this. But again, garbage in, garbage out. So you'd rather have the best data in terms of quality and utility than ever. And we'll be looking at this, and we're looking at behind firewalls and third-party models. Now, to try to summarize our lessons in less than a minute, obviously incremental approach. You've heard me many times saying you'd rather start small, you focus, you build things for your customers, not for yourself as a business, not for your PR. And then as you do that, you gain experience. The experience we have today compared to 6 months ago to compared to a year ago is just, it's a big difference. And it was very valuable for us to develop that and grow as we go. Avoid overcomplexity. Don't go and chase these. Again, that's at least my opinion or Betterworks' opinion on how things work for us. Don't go chase these overcomplicated things day one. Try to increase gradually and understand and grow as you grow your resources. Stay informed, but not overwhelmed. Again, if you are on LinkedIn, if you have these newsletters, everything about GenAI is just too much maybe at some points, and you need to keep focused. So don't get overwhelmed, but keep up with the news and go deep as you need when you need it. Maintain controls. What happens with generative AI, sometimes, like put everything into a vector DB and do a search, but sometimes we lose some of the controls we used to have in our systems, like role-based access controls and the way you limit the data to flow. So data leaks and data governance are so important. So don't just put in everything in GenAI and hope it's going to work and you get into problems. And then assess your cost and readiness. There are costs that comes with generative AI you need to be aware of and assess on a frequent basis. Prioritize your privacy, security, and controls. And specifically in this space, it was very important, and we had to keep up with these things. And then continuously evaluate. Where are we? How we are doing? What's our performance? What's our impact? Have metrics about the quality of your product now using generative AI. And if it doesn't bring any value, take it off and build it somewhere else. Use it where it should be. So that's it for me. I really appreciate it, and looking forward for our data panel later today. Thank you all.